All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Beast Wars Transquito. This was a special request from the comments section of a previous video. If you have any figures of your own that you'd like me to take a look at that I haven't already, you can leave a comment down in the comments section. And if it's something that I have, then I'll let you know and I'll add it to the queue. But yeah, no, today we're going to be taking a look at Transquito, a mega class from the Beast Wars toy line that turns into a mosquito, obviously. And yeah, this figure has some issues. I think it's fair to say. It's a neat looking mosquito mode. I don't love how the robot mode hands are just kind of hanging out in the front here, and it also does kind of have a hard time standing up totally straight. Like it always, it's so back heavy that it wants to lean back, so it's can be kind of difficult to get all the legs sitting on the ground in the way that looks good. I mean, I guess you could really kind of like pull them down like this and try to get that going on, but it works, but I don't think that looks particularly great. So I usually try to have it actually kind of like sitting on the ground. But yeah, it's an interesting looking mosquito mode. This figure just has a few structural issues, like the head here. So this is the robot mode head that has the little like proboscis, section or whatever you'd call it of the mosquito. And this is obviously the bug head, and there's a spring mechanism for getting this up in robot mode. And this whole mechanism, it's kind of holding surprisingly well right now, but it is kind of on a hair trigger. Like when you actually flip this around, I don't know why it's not doing it now, but the head flips around like that. And I find that sometimes this has a really difficult time kind of staying put in mosquito mode. So you can kind of get it locked into place there, but then it doesn't take a lot for it to just like flip over, and it'll happen sometimes, and it's just kind of annoying. Like in theory, there's like two little tabs here that are supposed to plug into this brown piece that kind of holds it in place. And sometimes that works better than others. In theory, the purple thing is supposed to be the latch that activates it, but like again, sometimes it just kind of activates, which is a bit annoying. He does have a missile here, which actually shoots the other way. When I was a kid, I just kind of cut the end of the missile off and sort of just stuck it in here so it could still be the the little stinger or whatever you'd call it in mosquito mode, but not have the missile in the mouth. So I can't really show off that functionality. I kind of made that non-functional a while ago, but that's how it's supposed to work. So it doesn't really launch out in this mode. It kind of launches the other way in robot mode. But yeah, in terms of articulation in the mosquito modes, see, there we go. That's going to happen every so often. The antenna here are on ball joints. I'm not going to move mine around because they are holding on by a hair right now. The ball joints are just a bit too stiff for this kind of soft piece of plastic, so they've kind of like snapped here at the end, and they're just like barely hanging on, so I'm not going to mess with that. My figure is definitely a little worse for wear. I've had this for a while, and it wasn't in amazing condition when I got it from eBay, so it's maybe not a pristine example here, but each of the bug legs are on ball joints. They don't unfortunately get a tremendous amount of side to side range, because it would be nice to actually have this spread out a little bit more in mosquito mode, but they can move around and do that, and they can rotate, but you don't get, like, again, a tremendous amount of useful movement out of that rotation, because then the knees just end up like clattering together, which looks a little weird as well. And then the wings here are notionally on hinges. They don't have like a tremendous range. They can just kind of go up and down like that. I think in theory they're supposed to go up a little further than that and like actually be able to click up, but it's clear plastic, and that's a very thin pieces holding the hinge in there, so I've never really wanted to mess with that all that much, and that's about all you're getting. In terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard size comparison, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe in his robot mode. For a newer Beast Wars bug figure, here he is with Kingdom Waspinator, just so you can see what the two of them look like together. And then here he is with his sort of like class assortment rival here with Baboom. And yeah, it's when I did the Baboom review, I talked about how he was the only figure who had that weird like tertiary mode, which was a really strange thing, and I totally forgot that Transquito had that mode, and I also totally forgot that these two figures are the same size class, because if you're looking at prices for these guys, if you can get them for the same price, get Baboom. He's better, he's bigger, he's just got a lot more going on, and yeah, it's wild to me that these two figures were kind of the same size assortment, because like once you get rid of the legs or whatever, like he's pretty small in comparison to Baboom. Like, it's comparable, but it definitely feels like, you know, this guy is like a size class up from Transquito when, no, in fact, they're both mega figures, which is weird to think about. But yeah, that's what they look like together. And yeah, as mentioned, he does have a weird sort of third mode like Baboom. Like Baboom, it's relatively avoidable if you just don't want to bother with it. But how you're supposed to get there is you take this thing with the wings. Oh, I forgot about, yeah, he also does have this gimmick here where he's got this latch where if you pull it back and forth, the wings will flap. I mean, you know, they're not flapping in the right direction, but they are flapping. So you can really get it going back and forth. I guess it kind of looks like a mosquito flying, even though, again, they should be going up and down, not side to side, I would think. But yeah, you want to take this entire section and then rotate it around on this hinge and then fold these kind of up like this. Here is his Predacon Spark Crystal here, just so you can see what that looks like. And then I'm not really totally sure what you're supposed to do with the legs. I think you're just supposed to split them and just kind of get them down the middle so that this piece can go in between them. And then I've seen pictures with it either way, but I think it looks a little bit cooler to flip that mechanism up so he, you know, doesn't have just a complete mosquito head on his butt. And then you take these sections of the wings and they actually unfold like this. So he has these like giant pincers and he becomes this this other kind of weird buggy sort of creature. It has these two eyes here. And yeah, I think that this is a little bit less unhinged than the tertiary mode for Baboom, but still pretty weird. And in theory, you can kind of do a grabby claw thing here with these, but they're, you know, now that you've got like the extra leverage there with them opened up, it does kind of make it difficult to activate, especially with these pieces on either side. So, and it doesn't actually like close up unless you like hinge these closed to like grab something. So it's a little weird, but again, it's mostly avoidable if you just don't want to bother with it. Really, you just leave this piece folded up and otherwise everything's the same. Leave the wings folded up. So, you know, and then when you're folding these back up, there's like a little tab right here on the clear plastic piece that you want to overlap these with, and it goes into this little hole on the other section of the wing there. So that's how it's supposed to sit. And yeah, you know, just to continue on with transformation, you just fold that back up. The legs you split here, they're kind of pegged into each other, and then you unfold them like this and can kind of rotate them forward. I find that for getting it to sit as cleanly as it can in mosquito mode, you want the hips with the screw facing forward, but then to have it look better in robot mode, I swap it around like that so that this detail's on the outside. It could be that the hips on mine that are like backwards actually, because it kind of looks like this detail is supposed to be on the outside. I've never really bothered wanting to flip it around, but you know, if your hips are facing the other way, then you don't have to do that extra step of like the flipping it around at the hips there. But yeah, you just do that for the legs there. For the arms, you just want to unfold it like this, untab them at the elbow, and then unfold the arm itself. And then just take this section with the bug legs and just kind of rotate them around so that the bug legs are facing the other direction, just to get them mostly out of the way there. And just do that on both sides here. You kind of unfold this section here, untab the elbow, unfold it at the elbow, and then rotate this section around. And then, you know, if this hasn't already activated, activate that and then bring this section down so that the robot mode head actually sits up into place, and then you allows the mosquito head to kind of spring back into place there. I usually try to get it so it's sort of sitting around this hinge. I think that's mostly how it's supposed to be. And yeah, there we have Transquito in his robot mode. Yeah, this figure is kind of a mess, like I've said. I think that his aesthetic is cool. I like the whole, you know, like look of the face sculpt there. I think that it is a kind of a neat design with or without the missile. Like I said, I took the, you know, snapped like the missile in half so that he didn't have to have the missile in robot mode, but like sticking out of his mouth. But you know, I think it looks cool either way. One of my biggest issues with this guy is just the feet and the way that, you know, they're not really sculpted in any sort of A stance, and then he's sitting on this kind of like hollow section, which makes it weirdly hard to get him actually standing up straight, because even if you get his legs in close as possible to each other, like sitting, you know, straight flush with each other, there's still a bit of wobble back and forth, with all of his like kibble and the whole chunk with the wing mechanism means he's a little bit top heavy, so it can be kind of annoying to like get him convincingly standing on the ground with his feet flat. It's not too difficult to actually actually get him standing there because he kind of like ends up bouncing on the wings, but it's he never feels like super stable, which I find kind of annoying, and always wants to kind of like topple backwards. And you can't really, like I said, like bring the wings much further back to help stabilize that. So it's always a bit annoying getting him to actually stand, which is probably my biggest problem with the figure, other than, you know, the annoying head flipping mechanism, just like not staying in place. But yeah, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint here, so it can rotate around. Granted, it has to kind of move past this like section that was supposed to trigger the head mechanism. So it's like, you know, kind of has to look down when he's turning his head side to side. His shoulders here are on ball joints, so they can rotate around like that and go out to the side. He does have a bicep swivel right here. He's got a very deep elbow bend, just for how it works for transformation. Though if you have the bug legs flipped around like this, then they do kind of run into this section, so you kind of have to like rotate them to get the full elbow bend, which is a little bit annoying because it's like it's just close enough that it feels like these could just kind of like push past that, but it's like really not good for the plastic of the figure to try to do that. Nothing at the waist. The hips, like I showed off, can move forward and back until they run into the wings, and then all the way out to the side just because of how those flip around. He's got a thigh swivel, deep knee bend for transformation there, and then the toes can kind of tilt down. So like he's got decent articulation. It's just like it's kind of hard to use it because he's always wanting to like topple over backwards because of just like how his feet are. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is again with Kingdom's Sideswipe, just so you can see what it looks like with an average size deluxe there. And here he is again with Kingdom Waspinator for an average size deluxe bug guy from our recent toy lines. And then here he is again with Baboom, who again was kind of his wave mate there. And yeah, like I said, they're comparable in size, but Baboom just like is taller and then also just has a lot more mass to him. So I feel like, you know, if you teleported back in time and we're having to be a kid picking from one of these two figures, like Baboom is the one to go for. Like he's bigger, you're getting more for your money, and he's also just like a much more solid figure, I feel like. Now, this guy is also constructed of a lot of brown plastic. I haven't seen specific reports of him having like kind of, you know, like GPS/BPS issues. So I don't know if that's a running thing with this figure. Mine seems to be holding up okay. It definitely feels okay. The only joint I'd really be super worried about, honestly, is the elbow joint, because it's like it's tight and it's kind of like an integral part that's like, you know, being held on without brown plastic. But like I said, I don't know if that's an issue with this figure. I just could foresee that being an issue with this figure down the line. But you know, it's held up okay so far. I mean, you know, aside from all the other issues that it has. But yeah, no, this figure is kind of a mess. It's one of those Beast Wars figures that I just didn't bother picking up for a while. The only reason I ever did get it is because I wanted a version of the character, because he was part of a team of Predacons in the Beast Wars The Gathering comics. With like, you know, it was led by Magmatron, and it had Spitter and Iguanus and Manterra and a couple others. And I just wanted like, you know, versions of all the characters from that team, because I really liked that book. But yeah, no, it would be cool to get like a new version of Transquito eventually. I don't know that I feel like that's pretty far down on Hasbro's priority list. But you know, it's one of those Beast Wars figures that I think doesn't really hold up as much as most of the toy line does. It's okay. It's got some charm. I do like some of the design qualities, like some of the design cues of it, like especially the robot mode head, I think looks really cool. And just the idea of having a transformer that turns into a mosquito is kind of a neat idea to begin with. But the figure has a lot of issues, and I think that it doesn't really totally hold up. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Beast Wars Mega Class Transquito.